Welcome to another episode of the Rarest birds in the Netherlands. We're experiencing a long stretch of calm and beautiful weather with frequent easterly winds, and that's clearly reflected in the number of rare birds spotted this week. But first, let's check in on our wintering birds, starting of course with the wagtail from St. Pancras. Well, St. Pancras? That was true up until Monday, because by Wednesday evening the bird had suddenly turned up in Herugewaard. Given the distance and lack of overlapping sightings, I'm going to assume it's the same individual. It was spotted in the park on the southern edge of the city, a spot also frequented by the well-known ring-necked duck. The familiar ring-necked duck wasn't there this time, but was instead swimming through the city canals alongside its tufted duck buddies. The bird gave great views here, and some birders made a detour to see it on their way back from the rarest species of the week, but more on that later. In the last episode, I mentioned that the female ring-necked duck in Zeeuws-Vlaanderen hadn't made it into April. Well, that turned out not to be true. This week, the bird was spotted again. On Sunday afternoon, April 6th, a sighting of a falcated duck came in from the Nieuwe Waterweg near Rotterdam. A stunning species, although a few proven escapes of this kind do roam our country. This bird, given the location, is almost certainly the same one that was seen in the area in both 2023 and 2024. It was seen again the following day, and that fits its usual pattern. It had also been spotted in various places, from the port of Rotterdam to the Nieuwe Driemanspolder near Zoetermeer. Another bird was spotted near Zwolle on Sunday. After earlier reports from the province of Overijssel, this time it was confirmed that the bird was unringed, and this was photographed, which greatly increases the chances of it being accepted. Whether it's the same individual as the one from Rotterdam area is still unknown. This week also brought 3 sightings of green-winged teal. 2 of them were at new locations, one in Limburg and one on Terschelling. There was also a green-winged teal at Terschelling last year, so it's likely the same bird using the island as a stopover on its way to northern regions. Whether that's in Europe or America is anyone's guess. It could also be the same individual that was on Vlieland, since there are no overlapping sightings. The third bird was a familiar face in the wet grasslands near Almere. And in that same area, a bufflehead suddenly popped up again on Sunday. After being reliably seen for a while in the Pampushaven, albeit at quite a distance, the bird had vanished for a time. Now it turns out she's still hanging around the Almere region after all. Unfortunately, she was gone after just a day, so I still don't have any footage of this female, but hopefully I'll manage to get some in the near future. And of course an update on the superstar spectacled eider, who seems to have developed stage fright during its stay in the Netherlands. It keeps staying well offshore, or maybe it's got its eye on one of the regular eiders as a potential mate and prefers to stay nestled in that group. Either way, there's still a chance that this bird will end up on the checklist of the 25 teams participating in the Texel Big Day on May 10th. Now that we've wrapped up the ducks, let's take a look at what other gems were spotted. The male little crake that appeared like clockwork every morning at 6:50 near Elburg stayed there until Friday, leaving many weekend twitchers disappointed on Saturday. It was remarkable to see how precisely the bird stuck to its schedule, appearing at exactly the same time in the same spot and then disappearing for the rest of the day. I've seen birds follow a daily rhythm before, but never to this punctual. For me, it was a new species that met the requirements for my filming list, and I'm very grateful for that. Now we just need a few singing males and females this spring, and perhaps this species can finally be removed from the list of review species. Even though we had a twitchable alpine swift 2 years ago, and the species is no longer considered a review species, it's still magical when one suddenly flies by. This happened to a group of a couple of dozen birders who were counting migrating birds all day at Breskens. Remarkably, what was very likely the same bird was picked up again 2 islands further north. On April 12th, just before 10 am, a red-rumped swallow was spotted at the same watch point. One observer even managed to get a record shot. Around 1 pm, another red-rumped swallow was seen near Nieuwvliet, but that one wasn't spotted from Breskens. It's quite striking how a species like that can be picked up at 2 locations so close together, yet not seen from both. A day later, yet another bird showed up on Terschelling, but it too disappeared just after 10 minutes. I'm still fervently hoping for a twitchable individual of this stunning swallow, but as long as the weather stays this nice, they'll likely keep flying straight through. The ones that do hang around usually do so when the weather shifts suddenly with strong headwinds and or rain. The pygmy cormorant in Lelystad is becoming less and less popular, which isn't surprising. Spring migration is in full swing and rare birds are showing up everywhere, just waiting to be found. This week only 2 sightings were reported. On Sunday, a glossy ibis was photographed flying over Breda, still quite scarce this year, but larger numbers in the Netherlands usually don't show up until May. It's been quite wet in Spain this year too, so most glossy ibises will likely be content to stay there, making trips further north unnecessary for now. The highlight of the week came from the Raptor department, when on Tuesday evening a Bonelli's eagle was seen flying circles south of Egmond, seemingly looking for a place to roost. While keeping the bird in view, the finder was recording voice messages to keep arriving twitchers updated, allowing a few dozen people to see the bird that very same evening. For those living further away, the wait was until the next morning. With memories of 2020 still fresh, many birders again took up watch along the edges of the area. Unfortunately, this bird didn't show nearly as well as the one in 2020. A bit after 10 am, the eagle lifted off from the woods, circled briefly to gain altitude and flew straight south. A few photos and a short film were taken, but the bird is barely recognizable in them. I was there myself, of course, since I hadn't managed to film the 2020 bird. I caught a brief view of it through Willem's scope, but filming didn't work out. Fortunately, someone shared a lovely photo with me. Thank you for that. This was only the second twitchable Bonelli's eagle in the Netherlands not found thanks to a GPS tracker, the other being the Vlieland bird from 1995. Black-winged kites continued to do well this year, with sightings in no fewer than 9 atlas blocks. The most twitchable individual was the one at the Mokkebank on the Frisian IJsselmeer coast. Bellet harriers did even better, with sightings in 40 atlas blocks. While I find the downlisting of the red-room swallow from very rare to rare somewhat debatable, I believe the downlisting of the bellet harrier is entirely justified. I'm curious whether and how many breeding pairs we'll have in the Netherlands this year. When it comes to rare wood warblers in April, we usually think of Iberian chiffchaffs and Western Bonelli's warblers. But first, we start with the Jungsleaf warbler, which was still being reported in Meersen, Limburg until the 10th. On the 13th, a bird was hit in a completely different spot in the same province. The same bird? Possibly, but not necessarily. Then we arrive at the Iberian chiffchaff. On the 11th, the beautiful song of the southern counterpart of a common chiffchaff was recorded in the North Holland Dune Reserve. The question each year isn't if, but where one will show up. And we'll be keeping track of how many appear in the coming episodes. On April 8th, a yellow wagtail with a black head was seen on the beach of Ameland. The photos showed a bird whose nape wasn't completely black. On the other hand, the observer did hear a harsh call, something typical of one of the southern subspecies of yellow wagtail, and not of the grey-headed wagtail, which sometimes also shows a black cap. The sighting was shared in many WhatsApp groups and via Dutch bird alerts. Many people dismissed the bird due to the not fully black nape, but when the original observer went back to sound record the bird, it turned out to fit quite well with black-headed wagtail. The bird was not relocated in the following days. If accepted, it will be only the 4th Dutch record of this taxon. The bird in the video is most likely a grey-headed wagtail with a black head, but I still don't have footage of a confirmed black-headed wagtail. With 5 more occupied atlas blocks than the pellet harrier, the hoopoe once again did exceptionally well in the Netherlands this week, being reported in 45 different atlas blocks. It's almost hard to believe. Unfortunately, the vast majority of these birds were not twitchable again this week. Maybe we'll have to wait until the influx starts to wind down for that. Still, it would be great if this influx leads to a few new breeding pairs and the species makes a solid comeback as a breeding bird in the Netherlands. Wrynecks were a lot scarcer this week, with only observations from 10 atlas blocks. But it's quite possible that some individuals have already returned to their breeding grounds, and those locations are being kept secret. Even though the species isn't considered extremely rare here, breeding locations that do get leaked tend to attract a fair amount of attention, something that doesn't always benefit the breeding success. Let's focus on finding the species during migration and give them space during the nesting season. And who knows, while checking known stopover sites, you might stumble upon some other rare species too. Another species with closely guarded breeding locations is the European bee-eater, of which the first 2 sightings were reported this week. That these sites are kept secret isn't surprising. Bee-eaters already have a hard enough time raising chicks in our rainy little country. Once the chicks hatch, they need a near constant supply of large insects, and when we have another one of those typically Dutch cold and wet summers, the birds have to go all in just to keep the young fed. Any moment of hesitation about returning to the nest can be one too many. On the flip side, bee-eaters that are simply stopping over, like the one on screen, are very scarce too. So if you see a local report of one in April or May, don't wait too long. The final species we're covering this week is the tawny pipit, which sadly went extinct as a breeding bird in the Netherlands back in 2003. That's already 22 years ago. They're still regularly seen during autumn migration, and those individuals are usually twitchable, like this bird from 2 years ago. In spring though, the species is becoming increasingly rare. About 10 years ago, tawny pipits were a fairly regular feature during good migration days at the right watch points. Nowadays, they're actually rarer than the red-rumped swallow. This week, the first one was seen at Newfleet, but once again, the bird wasn't picked up from Breskens. Is Newfleet simply a better watch point? Or were there just more skilled birders present there? An interesting phenomenon. I hope you enjoyed this video and, like me, are excited to head back into the field in the coming weeks to enjoy all the birdsong and the rare species passing through during migration. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and help me spread these videos by hitting the like button and leaving a quick comment. And I'll see you next time.